to obscenities due to the hacking that happened of our meeting.
Сало, українське сало, українцям того сала буде завжди мало, щоб у вас і у нас все завжди стояло. Треба їсти наше сало.
Казахстан угрожает...
Потому что в самолете все...
Can I continue, Crisis?
Yes, comrade, you can continue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As I indicated when we started, we had an extraordinary People Summit, which was organized by the Southern Africa People Solidarity Network in collaboration with Crisis Coalition in Zimbabwe, who are our lead and focal point on democracy, governance, and human rights cluster. We convened this extraordinary SADC People Summit as a parallel process to the Troika meeting that took place this morning to discuss the crisis in Mozambique. We came up with outcomes, demands, and actions that would want to take as citizens in solidarity with the people of Mozambique. We have a call that we have to our governments in the SADC region as a regional bloc in terms of the response that they have to launch in Mozambique in order to mitigate the impacts of the current conflict that is going on, that has got far-reaching impacts on women, on children, on youths, on civilians that have been dying on a daily basis, displaced on a daily basis, and exposed to different harassments by the militia in northern Mozambique. So we have come up with a communique which we would want to share with the SADC leadership, the Troika, the organ itself, the SADC Secretariat, and amongst ourselves, as we share our solidarity, as we exchange solidarity with the people of Mozambique, which is the currency that we have as people of the region, that we have learned from how we got our political independence. We held each other's hand, we protected each other, we supported each other, and we believe the same has to continue to happen until this region is truly free. So I'll call upon Comrade Rashid Mahiya, who is going to give us the communique. He will read the communique to us. Then we'll have interventions from the comrades that were part of the panel in the morning, mainly Comrade Nzira, would want to hear from you. We'll also hear from Comrade Moleta and Professor Navunga as they join. Thereafter, we have interventions from the media. We have interventions from comrades here in terms of what you believe should be in the communique, but to understand that the communique is carrying the spirit of solidarity, it is carrying the spirit of citizens' action, it is carrying the spirit of reclaiming SADC for our development, for our protection, for our prosperity, our peace, our dignity as people, and that we have to join hands in fighting against the injustices that continue to prevail on our region. So I'll call upon you, Comrade Rashid Mahiya, to read for us the communique.
Thank you, colleagues, members of the press, comrades from civil society in the region and everywhere else in the world. I am here as instructed by the summit, reading the communique, which is a product of today's deliberations. So I start. This is a communique on the extraordinary SADC People Summit on Mozambique that was held on the 8th of April 2021. Representatives from social movements and civil society organizations from across the SADC region met on the 8th of April 2021 to shadow the extraordinary SADC double tracker convened by SADC leaders to address the ongoing conflict in Mozambique. The People's Summit received the reports of the humanitarian, human rights, and economic impact of the conflict. The conflict has led to deaths of nearly 3,000 civilians. the displacement of over 700,000 civilians, and the varied needs of over 1 million civilians in urgent need of humanitarian support. Women and children have been disproportionately impacted by the violence amidst worrisome indications of the use of sexual violence and rape. The People's Summit noted both the domestic nature of the conflict and acknowledged the Mozambican government's reluctance to accept military support to address the conflict. In this regard, the meeting called for an end to military hostilities to pave way for a national dialogue aimed at addressing the root causes of the conflict. Summit disputed the narrative that ISIS or foreign militias are solely responsible for the conflict. This, while noting that the primitive accumulation and extractive activities of the multinational capital in collusion with local political elites are responsible for the escalation of domestic conflicts within Cabo Delgado region. 5. Summit noted the failure by the Mozambican government to guarantee security of civilians and address the humanitarian impact of the conflict. In this regard, Summit urged SADC leaders to develop an acceptable regional response and support package to strengthen the Mozambican government's response without undermining their national sovereignty. 6. Summit expressed concern over the escalation of rights violations, particularly the rape of young girls and women perpetrated by both the insurgents and the state security forces, as well as the continuing shrinking of the civic space in the Cabo Delgado region. Summit expressed concern over the growth of a regional and cross-boundary illicit economy in drugs, minerals, human trafficking, and small arms in the region. And we therefore recommend the summit recommendation number 1. Member states attending the Double Troika Summit in Maputo, Mozambique, should come up with a concrete plan of action on the Mozambican crisis, and this plan should consider military, inclusive dialogue, and humanitarian support. 2. Summit recommended that SADC countries need to consider offering support to refugees from Mozambique. 3. Summit recommended that the African Union Peace and Security Council should convene an urgent meeting on the Cabo Delgado conflict and come up with a solid crisis response plan. 4. CSOs from the SADC region should urgently mobilize humanitarian support for the people of Mozambique affected by the Cabo Delgado conflict. 5. The citizens in the SADC region should strengthen people-to-people solidarity and speak out against terrorism and the reluctance by the Mozambican government to accept foreign support. Our 6th recommendation is that SADC member organizations and broader civil society should continuously petition Mozambican government embassies within the different SADC countries on the above mentioned issues. Our 7th recommendation is that CSOs in SADC should make a call for international humanitarian institutions to intervene in saving the humanitarian crisis in the Cabo Delgado region. 8th and final one. In line with the concept of people-to-people solidarity, SADC CSOs should coalesce in addressing the underlying causes of the conflict in the Cabo Delgado region, particularly the marginalization of locals in the extractive industries. This is the end of our communique. We entertain questions from members of the press. Thank you. Over to you, Janet.
Thank you very much, Comrade Mahiya. Comrade Mahiya has said, we'll now entertain interventions from the participants, from the media. So we'll take questions, we'll take any clarifications that you may have. Simply raise your hand and I will pick on you once I see a hand up. In terms of reaction to the communique, in terms of any clarifications that you may have. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we are going to go straight into the questions because of the change in the link, some of the speakers could not rejoin this meeting. but they had an opportunity to look at the communique. So at this point in time, we'll take interventions from the floor. Kindly raise your hand. I see comrades that are joining. We're at the question and answer segment. So if you have any question, any issue you'd want to raise with regards to the outcome of our People's Summit, which we held parallel to the double Troika meeting that was held this morning, please just go ahead and raise your hand. I'm looking on the participants list for any hands that may want to contribute. Yes, Comrade Leonardo, may you please go ahead.
Thank you so much for giving the opportunity to ask a question. Yeah, we are also equally concerned about how best can the civic society help to supplement the talk show that was happening to this afternoon in Maputo, because the news reaching us is, as usual, these talk shows going on. What else can be done on the humanitarian front rather than, going on the regional economic community front? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any other hand? You can lower your hand, Comrade Leonardo. Comrade Rashid, there is a question in terms of talk shows, and I think this is something that we also discussed in the morning at the SADC People Summit in terms of the real action that has to be taken. So the question is, how do we move beyond the talk shows? Because the double Troika had a talk show, nothing substantive has come out of there, very mediocre communique in terms of action by SADC in terms of response to what is happening in Cabo Delgado. What are we saying we're doing beyond this communique? Please come through, Comrade Mahiya.
Thank you, Comrade. I think as clearly highlighted in our communique, we are emphasizing the importance of humanitarian support to the victims, the civilians who are affected by this conflict. We've also emphasized specific support to women because they are affected differently and disproportionately so, as we said, with the conflict. We are also talking about action in SADC countries targeting the Mozambican embassies to raise these concerns. We've also spoken about the need to hold the Mozambican government to account on the human rights violations that are taking place in the areas of conflict. That is created an environment where this democratic space is not only shrinking, but people are being victimized, and to hold the government to account. We have also insisted that in addition to the humanitarian support, there is need to invoke the regional protocols to action. A specific summit that we proposed, action from the SADC, from African Union. So we are expressing the need for a real action. After all the talk has been done, we will see action between citizens, solidarity by citizens and civil society, but also holding the governments to account in holding regional and Africa-wide, like the African Union bodies to act. So I raised that, and I think there are many other issues that we raise around how do we ensure that the locals are involved in the economy and are not sidelined, and there's no development in the area. So it's actually ongoing work in the committees that we work in the country SADC states that we work in. But we agree with you. We're not just talking, we are holding people to account and also asking for a real action.
Thank you very much. I think that is very clear. We're launching our regional and continental advocacy, and it's action-oriented, both from the citizens' perspective, but also from the leadership. We're calling for action, and the communique is written in that action-oriented language, and the demands are very clear on the actions that have to be taken, and it includes addressing the humanitarian crisis that we have seen. But I think the summit also recognized that it's beyond the humanitarian crisis. There is the issue of human rights abuses. There is the deep core issues that have to be addressed in order to deal with the issue of ownership of resources, in order to deal with the exclusion of communities and indigenous people in favor of capital. So thank you for that, Comrade Mahiya. I will take any more interventions. Please just raise your hand for any interventions or questions that you may have. I'm taking more hands, if there are any. Comrade Mahiya, I'm not seeing any more hands, but maybe I'll just call on you once again just to give us the next steps in terms of what we're doing with the communique and the engagements that we're going to do with the communique before we close.
Thank you, Comrade. We have this communique that we're going to share with SADC. So we're going to engage the SADC Secretariat, of course, in Botswana and share with them. And of course, we are also going to share the communique with the African Union, with the various organs of the African Union that are responsible for security. We are obviously also going to engage the Mozambican government in our various areas of countries of origin and where we operate from. We are obviously also going to mobilize civil society to continuously speak against the violations and highlight them. And as part of the process is also engaging with media to continuously highlight the crisis in Mozambique to ensure that women, children, and the vulnerable are protected. I think comrades that are here can also add some of the actions that we line up, so that we are clear that we're not just talking. Yet talking is important because the spaces have been closed. But yes. Comrade Janet, you can then just take over and get the other issues, steps going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think you have been very clear. I had the Mozambican comrades as well during the conference. They were calling for actions that we can take. The Mozambican embassies, for those that have embassies in their countries, in terms of calling for action from the Mozambican authorities to address the current crisis, actually deepening crisis in Mozambique. I think that is also one issue that we're going to continue to take forward as well as a network. So thank you very much. We'll conclude on the communique and we'll widely share it and ensure that it reaches the authorities. We have seen the Troika, the double Troika has already issued a communique, and as I indicated, it lacks the commitment to having a solid response that is going to stop the madness that is currently happening in northern Mozambique. We really thank you for participating in this press conference. We wanted to share the outcome of our morning deliberations, which were well attended from across the region. We had South Africa, we had Mozambique, we had Zimbabwe, we had Swaziland, and many other comrades and colleagues that participated in the SADC People's Summit. Unfortunately, they could not participate in this press conference, mainly because we had targeted to do it at 6 p.m., but we had that media, especially in Mozambique, they wanted this communique by 3 p.m. so that they could put it on their files to cover our summit, which we held in the morning. So as the press covers it, we'll share those, but meanwhile, we'll also take action to engage on the demands and the asks that we have made to our leadership. Thank you very much for this afternoon that you've given to us. We wish you well, and let us continue to move together and have the SADC that respects people's rights, a SADC that is in solidarity and united for people's dignity, prosperity, and peace. Thank you all. Amandla. Thank you.